Please help me.
If I can't have you, no one will.
This was not just an act of revenge. It was an act of obsession. And it all started with a simple word, no. Amanda wiped the sweat off her forehead, her fingers sticky with mango juice. The smell of ripe bananas, spices, and dust filled the air as she arranged the fruit baskets in front of her mother's small stall. The sun burned like fire, but she barely noticed. This was her everyday life. While other girls her age painted their nails and whispered about boys, Amanda had only one dream: to escape, to become a doctor, to rise above the poverty that had trapped her family for generations. Her mother's voice echoed in the background. "Amanda, sleep. You will spoil your eyes." But Amanda couldn't stop. She had seen too many people die because they couldn't afford a simple hospital visit. And she had vowed that would never be her fate. The problem? Dreams required money. And money was something her family did not have. Her father, a vulcanizer, came home every night covered in grease, his hands cracked from years of hard labor. Her mother, weary from standing all day, barely made enough selling fruit to feed them. A doctor's education? Impossible. But Amanda wasn't like other people. She believed in miracles. She believed things would change. She just didn't know that change would come in the form of a man she had never met. From the moment he laid eyes on her, Amanda's life was no longer hers. Emeka was not just rich. He was powerful. A man who never heard the word no. If he pointed at something, it became his. If he wanted something, he took it. And if he loved something, he possessed it. The moment his eyes landed on her, something inside him shifted. She wasn't like the others. Most village girls chased wealth, throwing themselves at rich men for a chance at a better life. But her? There was something pure about her, untouched, innocent. She had no idea how the world worked, how money controlled everything. And that made her perfect. "Who is that girl?" Emeka asked one of his workers. "That's Amanda, sir, the vulcanizer's daughter. She's very smart, always reading." A slow smile crept across Emeka's lips. A poor girl with big dreams. Perfect. He had more than enough money to make her dreams come true. All she had to do was say yes. The next day, Amanda was arranging her fruits when she noticed a stranger standing in front of her. He was older, dressed in expensive clothes, his gold wristwatch shining in the sunlight. She had seen him before, the rich tire dealer, the man who owned half the market. Emeka smiled. "How much for everything on your tray?" Amanda blinked, confused. "Everything?" "Yes. I'll buy all your fruits today." For the first time, Amanda hesitates. Something about this feels wrong. Why would a billionaire, one of the most powerful men in the city, be interested in her tiny tray of mangoes? She needed the money, desperately. But before she can speak, Emeka handed her a bundle of cash, far more than the fruits were worth. "Take the extra, buy something nice for yourself." Amanda froze. Her mother had always warned her about men who gave money too easily. Gifts always came with hidden prices. "No, sir," she said, stepping back. "I can't take more than what I've earned." Emeka's smile faltered. He wasn't used to being rejected, but instead of getting angry, he simply nodded. Interesting, she would be a challenge. And if there was one thing Emeka loved, it was challenges. Emeka knew one thing. If a girl said no, go to her father. That night, he sent for Amanda's father, Nnamdi. The old man arrived nervously at Emeka's grand mansion, shifting uncomfortably in his worn-out slippers as he sat on the expensive leather couch. Emeka poured himself a drink. "I hear your daughter is very smart." Nnamdi nodded proudly. "She is, sir. She wants to be a doctor." Emeka smiled. "Good. I can make that happen." Namdi's eyes widened. You will pay for her schooling? On one condition. Emika leaned forward. When she finishes, she will become my wife. Namdi swallowed hard. He had never wanted to sell his daughter into marriage, but Amanda's dream was impossible without money. Could he really let this opportunity slip away? Would Amanda forgive him if he said yes? He had to decide. But deep inside, he knew. He had already made his choice. The next morning, Amanda was shocked when her father handed her a receipt for her university registration. She stared at it. Papa, where did you get the money? Her father avoided her eyes. A friend helped. Something inside Amanda twisted. A friend? No one in the village had this kind of money. She felt sick. She knew. Her father had sold her. She grabbed his hands, her voice shaking. Papa, tell me it's not him. Namdi sighed heavily. Amanda, listen to me. Emika is a good man. He just wants to help. Help! Amanda screamed. Or own me! Her father said nothing. Tears filled Amanda's eyes. She had been betrayed by the man she trusted the most. But one thing was certain. She would never belong to Emeka. Not now. Not ever. Amanda had no choice but to go to school. She studied. She passed her exams. She kept her head down. But she never forgot. Emeka didn't pressure her. He played the role of the generous benefactor. But he was watching. Every time she spoke to a boy, he disappeared. Every time she smiled at a man, he was threatened. Emeka was patient. He had invested in her, and one day he would collect what was his. But Amanda? She was waiting too, waiting for the day she could finally escape. Little did she know. That day would come sooner than she expected. Amanda's days in university were supposed to be the best years of her life, but instead of freedom, she felt like a prisoner. Emeka didn't visit her campus. He didn't call her. He didn't even write. But she felt him everywhere. Every move she made, every step she took, someone was always watching. At first she thought she was imagining things, but then strange things started happening. One evening, after class, she walked to her hostel and found a gift box on her bed. She never gave anyone her room key. Inside was a gold necklace with a small note attached. For my beautiful wife-to-be, keep shining for me. Amanda's heart stopped. She knew that handwriting. Emeka. She stormed outside breathless. Who put this in my room? She asked her roommates. They all shook their heads. We thought you bought it yourself. That night Amanda didn't sleep. She knew what this meant. He was watching, and she wasn't safe. Amanda tried to live a normal life. She made friends. She studied hard. She even started talking to a classmate, David, a kind, intelligent young man who understood her dreams. But the moment Emeka's spies saw Amanda laughing with David, the boy's life changed forever. One morning, David came to campus looking shaken. His face was pale, and he avoided Amanda's gaze. What's wrong? She asked. David looked around nervously. Amanda, I can't talk to you anymore. Amanda frowned. What? Why? He hesitated, then whispered, I got a warning. If I don't stay away from you, I'll disappear. Amanda's blood turned to ice. She grabbed his hand. Who warned you? David yanked his hand away and shook his head. Just stay away from me, Amanda, please. And just like that, he was gone, just like the others. That night, Amanda cried herself to sleep. She realized something terrifying. No matter where she went, no matter who she met, Emeka would always find her. Amanda knew she had to do something. She couldn't live like this forever. One evening, she sat in her tiny hostel room and made a decision. She was going to leave the country. But how? She had no money, no connections. She needed help. There was only one person she could trust. Her lecturer, Mrs. Kalu, who had always treated her like a daughter. The next day, Amanda went to her office. "Ma, I need your help." Her voice trembled. Mrs. Kalu looked up, concerned. "What's wrong, Amanda?" Amanda hesitated, then whispered, "I need to leave Nigeria." Mrs. Kalu's eyes widened. "Why? What's happening?" Amanda's lips trembled. I can't explain now, but please, Ma, you're the only one who can help me." Mrs. Kalu studied Amanda's face, seeing the desperation in her eyes, and then she nodded. "Pack your bags, Amanda. I'll help you." For the first time in 6 years, Amanda felt hope. The night before Amanda's flight, she barely slept. Her hands were cold as she packed her few belongings, clothes, books, and an old photograph of her family. Mrs. Kalu had helped her get a scholarship in Canada. Amanda couldn't believe it. Her dream was coming true. She was finally leaving Emeka's shadow behind. She prayed he wouldn't find out. The next morning, she arrived at the airport, her heart racing. She checked in. She walked towards the departure gate. And just as she was about to board the plane, she heard a voice. A deep, familiar voice that made her blood freeze. "Amanda." She turned slowly. There he was, Emeka, smiling, waiting. And in that moment, Amanda knew he would never let her go. Amanda's legs shook. Emeka stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at her like a hunter who had finally caught his prey. He took a step forward. "Going somewhere, my love?" Amanda forced herself to breathe. "Emeka, how did you—" He smirked. "You really thought I wouldn't find out? I own people inside this airport, Amanda. You can't run from me." Her fists clenched. "I'm not yours, Emeka." His eyes darkened. "You owe me, Amanda." "I never asked for your help," she snapped, her voice shaking. Emeka laughed, a cold, chilling sound. "Oh, but your father did, and I own what I paid for." Amanda felt sick. She wanted to run, to scream. But then, an announcement. Final boarding call for Flight 307 to Canada. Her heart pounded. This was her chance. Without thinking, she turned and ran towards the gate. Emeka's voice roared behind her. "Amanda, if you get on that plane, you're dead to me." Amanda didn't stop. She ran, and as the plane took off, she looked out the window and saw him, standing by the terminal, staring at her with pure hatred. She had escaped. For now, Amanda landed in Canada with a heart still pounding from fear. For weeks, she barely left her hostel. She was afraid that Emeka would appear, afraid that he would find her. But slowly, life started to feel normal. She focused on school. She made new friends. She even met a man, Ibrahim, a kind and intelligent doctor. For the first time in years, she felt safe. But what Amanda didn't know was that Emeka was not done with her, because the man who waited 6 years for her could wait a little longer. And when the time came, his revenge would be unstoppable. Amanda sat in her small apartment in Canada, staring at the snow-covered streets outside. The air was crisp, cold, so different from the humid heat of Nigeria. It had been months since she escaped, yet Emeka's voice still haunted her dreams. Some nights, she dreamt of fire, of his hands reaching out to grab her, of his deep, menacing voice whispering, "You are mine, Amanda. You will always be mine." She shook off the thought and turned to her books. She had worked too hard to let her past define her future. Ibrahim, the soft-spoken doctor she had met in school, had invited her for dinner that evening. She hesitated. Relationships terrified her now. But Ibrahim was different. He was gentle, kind, and most importantly, not controlling. Maybe, just maybe, she could finally allow herself to be happy. Little did she know, thousands of miles away, Emeka was planning his next move. It started with a phone call. Amanda was in the hospital cafeteria with Ibrahim when her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but she answered anyway. "Amanda, it's Mama." Amanda froze. Her mother's voice was shaky, filled with panic. "Mama, what's wrong?" Her mother sobbed. "Amanda, your father. They destroyed his shop. They set it on fire." Amanda's heart stopped. "Who did this?" she cried. There was a long silence. Then, in a whisper, her mother said, "It was Emeka." The world around Amanda blurred. Her hands trembled as she gripped the phone. "He said if you don't come back, he will destroy us all." Amanda's breath came in sharp gasps. Her worst fear had come true. Emeka wasn't coming for her. He was going after her family. Amanda sat on her bed that night, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with thoughts of home, of the father who had once betrayed her, but was now suffering because of her choices. Could she just stay here and pretend nothing was happening? She wanted to. She wanted to block out Nigeria, Emeka, everything, but she couldn't. Because despite everything, she still loved her parents. The next morning, she made a decision. She booked a flight back home. Ibrahim was shocked. "Amanda, no. This man tried to control you for years. Now he's using your parents as bait." Amanda's eyes were wet with unshed tears. "I have to go. If I don't, he'll never stop." And so, after months of safety, Amanda boarded a flight back into the lion's den, back to Nigeria, back to him. The air in Nigeria was thick with heat and tension. As Amanda stepped out of the airport, she pulled her scarf tighter around her head, hoping no one would recognize her, but she couldn't hide forever. She went straight home, heart pounding as she stepped into her family's small house. Her mother rushed to embrace her, sobbing into her shoulder. "My child, my child, I thought I'd never see you again." Her father sat in a corner, his head in his hands. His once proud shop, the only source of their income, was now ashes. Amanda knelt before him. "Papa." He lifted his head. His eyes were hollow, his face aged. "I failed you, Amanda." Tears filled Amanda's eyes. Despite everything, despite the past, she forgave him. But forgiveness wouldn't stop Emeka. Only revenge would. That night, Amanda received a message, a single text from an unknown number. "Welcome home, my love. Let's talk tomorrow, 7 p.m., the Royal Hotel." She felt sick. Emeka had been waiting for her. Her mother grabbed her phone. "Amanda, you are not going." Amanda clenched her jaw. "I have no choice." Her father coughed. His voice was weak but firm. "Don't let him win." Amanda took a deep breath. "I won't." And the next night, she walked straight into Emeka's trap. The restaurant was empty when Amanda arrived. Emeka was already seated, dressed in an expensive suit, sipping red wine as if he hadn't just burned down her father's shop. She sat across from him, fists clenched. "Why did you do it?" Emeka smirked. "You left me, Amanda. I don't like losing." Amanda's voice was cold. "I was never yours," he chuckled. "Ah, but I paid for you." Her stomach twisted with disgust. "I will never be yours, Emeka." His face darkened. He leaned in. "Then I will destroy everyone you love." Amanda met his gaze, unshaken, unafraid. "You already tried," she whispered, "and I'm still here." Emeka smiled slowly. Not for long. A chill ran down Amanda's spine. She had just declared war, and Emeka never lost wars. The attack came at midnight. Amanda was in bed when she heard the first gunshot. Her mother screamed. Her father shouted, "Amanda, run!" She bolted up, heart pounding, as a bullet shattered the window. Then she saw them, 2 masked men, breaking down the door. Her breath caught. Emeka had sent killers. Amanda ran. She grabbed her mother's hand, dragging her through the back door as bullets tore through their small house. They barely made it to the neighbor's compound before the gunshots stopped. Then, silence. Amanda turned. Their home was destroyed. Again, her father was still inside, and Amanda knew. Emeka wouldn't stop until she was dead. Amanda was done running. She had escaped before. She had survived before. But this time, she was going to end Emeka. No more fear, no more tears. If he wanted war, she would bring hell. Amanda stood in the ruins of her childhood home, her heart burning with rage. Smoke still rose from the collapsed roof, the shattered windows reflecting the chaos Emeka had caused. The air smelled of ash and gunpowder. Her father was gone, killed in the attack. Her mother sobbed beside her, clutching the burnt remains of her husband's old radio. Amanda's hands clenched into fists. For years she had been afraid. For years she had run. But now she was done running. She had tried to escape. She had tried to be free. But Emeka had taken everything. Her innocence, her peace, her father. It was time to take something from him, and she knew exactly where to start. Amanda spent the next few days planning. She wasn't just going to fight back. She was going to destroy him. First, she needed proof. She needed the world to see who Emeka really was, and for that, she needed someone on the inside. Her mind went to one person, Chuka. Chuka had been Emeka's right-hand man for years, a loyal worker who did his dirty jobs. But Amanda knew something about Chuka that Emeka didn't. Chuka had a sister Emeka had once hurt, and that was Amanda's way in. She arranged a meeting in secret. Chuka arrived nervous and suspicious. "What do you want, Amanda? You know I work for Emeka." Amanda leaned forward, voice cold. "I know what he did to your sister." Chuka's jaw tightened. He looked away. Amanda pressed on. "Help me take him down, Chuka. You know he won't stop, not until he kills me. And then, when he's done, he'll come for someone else. Maybe someone you love." Chuka sighed heavily, rubbing his hands together, and then he made his decision. "I'm in." Chuka knew Emeka's operation better than Emeka himself did. For over a decade, he'd been the shadow behind Emeka's empire, keeping records, handling finances, and cleaning up the dirty work. Every illegal deal, every bribe, every secret transaction passed through Chuka's hands. And now, all of Emeka's dark secrets lay at Amanda's fingertips. Together, Amanda and Chuka worked tirelessly, gathering evidence in the dim glow of a single desk lamp. Files covered the battered wooden table in Amanda's rented room, bank statements, photographs, emails, phone records, all clearly exposing Emeka's criminal activities. It was easier than she expected, because Emeka had gotten sloppy. His obsession with Amanda had made him reckless. He left trails, made enemies. And one of those enemies? Inspector Dyke, the same police officer whose brother Emeka had killed years ago. Amanda took the evidence straight to him. Dyke flipped through the files, his face darkening. "Do you know what you've just handed me?" he asked. Amanda nodded. "Enough to lock him up for life." Dyke exhaled sharply. "Then let's end this." And with that, Amanda's trap was set. The night before Emeka's arrest, Amanda sat in her mother's room, watching her sleep. She should have felt relief, but something felt off. She had learned one thing in life. Whenever things were going too smoothly, something bad was about to happen. And she was right. The next morning she got a message from Chuka. "Abort the plan. Someone snitched." Amanda's stomach dropped. Before she could even process it, gunshots erupted outside. She rushed to the window and froze. Men in black suits surrounded the house, armed, ruthless. At the center of it all stood Emeka, grinning, holding a gun. Amanda's blood turned to ice. She had been betrayed, and now she was trapped. "Amanda!" Her mother was awake now, panicked and clutching her arm. "What's happening?" "We have to move. Now." Amanda grabbed her mother's hand, urgently pulling her toward the back door. But before they could reach safety, the front door exploded inward, splinters flying everywhere. 2 armed men burst in, faces hidden behind masks, eyes cold as ice. Amanda screamed, lunging toward her mother, but the men were faster. One grabbed Amanda roughly, twisting her arms painfully behind her back. The other seized her mother, pulling her away as she struggled desperately. "Let her go!" Amanda shouted, kicking furiously. But her captor held tight, laughing cruelly at her futile struggles. Then, slowly, casually, Emeka stepped inside, suit impeccable, eyes dark with madness and obsession. He strolled toward Amanda with terrifying calmness, gun loosely held by his side. "My dear Amanda," he whispered softly, his voice filled with chilling tenderness. "Did you really believe you could outsmart me?" "Me?" Amanda glared back defiantly, rage overcoming her fear. "You're a monster." Emeka chuckled, amused. He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "And you, my dear, will always belong to me." Without another word, he raised his gun and pointed it directly at Amanda's mother. Amanda's heart stopped. Her mother's eyes filled with terror. "Amanda!" she sobbed desperately. Emeka smiled, sinister and cold. "You took everything from me. Now I'll return the favor." "No!" Amanda screamed, lunging desperately. A deafening gunshot exploded through the room. For a moment, everything seemed frozen in time. Amanda braced herself, expecting pain, loss, death. But the agony never came. Instead, Emeka stumbled forward, eyes wide with shock, blood blossoming darkly on his chest. He stared down at the wound, bewildered. Behind him, silhouetted against the open doorway, stood Chuka, his trembling hand gripping the still smoking gun. He lowered the weapon slowly, his expression haunted yet resolute. Emeka staggered, reaching out helplessly. "Chuka!" he choked weakly. "You destroyed too many lives," Chuka whispered, his voice hollow with grief, "including my sisters. It's over, Emeka." With one last disbelieving gasp, Emeka collapsed onto the floor. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. It was finally over. Within hours, the police swarmed Emeka's estate, uncovering the evidence Amanda and Chuka had meticulously collected. His empire unraveled quickly, his loyal followers scattered like rats, leaving him alone to face justice. Amanda stood quietly, numb yet free, watching officers carry Emeka's broken figure away. Inspector Dyke nodded respectfully at her. Justice had finally caught up to the man who'd haunted her dreams, but the price had been steep. Amanda couldn't remain in Nigeria. Too many memories, too many nightmares. She and her mother boarded a flight back to Canada, leaving behind the scorched earth of their past. Amanda rebuilt her life, step by painful step, healing scars that ran deeper than skin. She had just begun to find peace when a letter arrived, its edges rough, postmarked from Nigeria. The handwriting chilled her to the bone. It was Emeka from prison. Amanda hesitated, then opened the letter slowly. "I will never stop loving you, even from hell." Her fingers shook, rage and fear igniting in her chest. Without hesitation, she held the letter over a candle, watching as flames slowly consumed Emeka's words. Some nightmares would always linger, but Amanda would never be owned again. Years passed. Amanda became a respected doctor, fulfilling the dream she'd fought so hard to achieve. She saved lives, made peace with her past, and found love with Ibrahim, whose kindness mended wounds she never thought could heal. Still, there were nights when memories returned, flames, fear, gunshots echoing through her mind. Yet each time she awoke shaking, Ibrahim's gentle touch grounded her again. One evening, as she watched the sunset from her porch, Amanda whispered to herself, a promise forged in fire and pain. Never again. Her journey wasn't simply about surviving. It was about strength, resilience, the refusal to break even under immense pressure. She had faced her worst nightmare and emerged unbroken. Amanda learned one truth above all else. Some people may try to control you, some may try to break you. But if you stand firm, refusing to surrender, no one can truly own you, because your life belongs to you alone. And that was true freedom. What do you think? Did Amanda do the right thing? Would you have fought back or escaped forever? What lesson did this story teach you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you loved this story, hit like and subscribe for more heart-stopping African tales.